This is Mission Control Houston, our first view of the crew today on the 35 seconds.
Integrity.
2 good drogue chutes. Next up,
We copy, we see him.
Next up, the deployment of pilot parachutes that will pull the main chutes out. Time to splash down 3 minutes. And
Herkese selam. YouTuber eğitimleri kanalına hoş geldiniz. Bugün sizlerle birlikte YouTube'a sağ tıklayın. Direkt olarak videoyu indir dediğimde arkadaşlar hiçbir şekilde bana sorgu sual etmeden direkt
GLS, go for your left.
Great call out. The rocket is on its own. 4 brave explorers ready to ride the
Outstanding, Stan. We have you the same.
sound suppression.
Good roll pitch.
Roger, roll pitch.
Second mark.
10, 9,
And since the ceasefire, how many lives had been saved? We wouldn't have known.
And
of
thanks to
course.
efforts by Pakistan.
Yes,
thanks to these
effort
mediation
by
efforts.
Pakistan, and let's keep our fingers crossed. And we have, something to cheer about, and that's like we've brought Iran and America
Together, under one roof, in Islamabad of all places.
Yes, and let's keep our fingers crossed for a good outcome and long-lasting peace, which cannot be achieved in hours, in days or weeks. It can take much longer, but well done to Pakistan, and let's take a break.
And well done to Pakistan TV as well.
Yes.
And of course, this has been the longest interaction we've had with our channel head and our colleague as well, Sana. So ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time for us to bid you
You'll
farewell
have to
from
wait
this.
for another round of peace talks, Umar.
Oh, no. We should have more of this, on a regular level, because it will be very good for to understand how things are moving across the world. We are going to leave this to... Yes, thank you. Yes, and we are going to leave this to the Artasana. Any last words? Any last words?
I'm looking forward to something. I think coming out of these.
She's going to pause now. She's going to pause now.
Which is going to be helpful to all of us. And of course, Pakistan's role is undeniable. And so hoping for the best, and we'll be here and updating you as we hear more.
Yes,
stay tuned. Over to you. Stay tuned. Over to you.
Thank you very much, viewers. You were watching that channel head, Mr. Adil, along with correspondent Mahmood and Omar Khalid Butberg, having a very constructive conversation. Now, U.S.-Iran talks are underway in Islamabad, Pakistan, and as we all know, Pakistan has been hosting this very major development, a very major crucial talks between Iran and U.S. Now, these talks are taking center stage in crucial diplomatic push to restore peace in the Middle East. The U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is leading the high-level delegation for historic peace talks with Iran, and joined by Kushner. While on the Iranian side, we see Mohammad Bagher and Abbas Araghchi. Now, viewers, we are now tossing you to who is actually talking and looking forward on the transmission regarding the Islamabad peace talks.
ये फोर्थ नंबर पे जो Hello and welcome to this special live transmission at Pakistan TV regarding the Islamabad talks which are pretty much underway in Islamabad, and we know for a fact these negotiations have been going on for so many hours now between high-ranking delegation from the US side, which is of course led by Vice President Mr. J.D. Vance. Also, the Iranian side, the Assembly Speaker of Iran, Mr. Mohammad Bagher Kalibaf, is heading the Iranian delegation. Both the sides had gone into a war that lasted for 40 days, and upon that very request by Pakistan's Prime Minister to both of these countries, both agreed to a temporary ceasefire for almost 2 weeks, and right after that both agreed to come here in Pakistan to resolve the outstanding issues between the two, and these much anticipated talks are underway right now as we speak. There hasn't been anything official regarding as to anything that has so far transpired during these deliberations between these two high-ranking delegations of the US and Iran. But all eyes are set on these high-stakes talks. The entire world is looking forward to some sort of a substantial outcome, or at least something understanding that could actually pave the way for future engagement between the two and the resolution of the outstanding disputes. Also, it is pertinent to mention over here that Pakistan played such a pivotal role, firstly, in de-escalating the situation, making the two sides to go to a temporary ceasefire, and also bringing them back to the negotiating table. Also, let me bring in Mr. Robert Grenier. He is a defense analyst, is joining us from Washington, D.C. Firstly, Mr. Grenier, thank you very much for your time for being with us on this special live transmission at Pakistan TV. I really appreciate that. Back to the negotiating. Mr. Grenier, looking at this particular inclusion of Mr. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States of America, leading his delegation into these talks with the Iranian side, what does that signify? What sort of a message does it send across with his inclusion into the delegation?
Well, I think the clear conclusion there is that the U.S. side is taking this very, very seriously. Apart from President Trump himself, obviously, Vice President Vance is the most senior person who could be involved in this. And so, yes, I think if there's any indication needed that the U.S. is very serious about this, among many other things, the fact that the Vice President is directly involved in these discussions for the first time, as I believe you mentioned, in 47 years, this is a serious indication of seriousness on the U.S. part.
Right. So when we look at the expectations, what are the expectations for the U.S. side is concerned? Mr. Grenier, please stay with us. Let me also bring in another participant who has joined us just now, Mr. Ayaz Muhammad Khan. He's the former ambassador. Mr. Ayaz Muhammad Khan, thank you very much for your time also for being with us on this special live transmission. We really appreciate that. Please stay with us. Let me once again proceed towards Mr. Grenier. Mr. Grenier, what are the expectations after 40 days of the U.S. went into war against Iran? What are the expectations right now?
Well, as we all know, there are a great many very difficult issues that are on the board right now that need to be discussed in great detail. I think from the U.S. side, the immediate issue that they will want to address is the Straits of Hormuz, because the longer this carries on, the greater the pressure on the world economy and therefore politically on the U.S. So again, not to underestimate the importance of the nuclear issue, the missile issue, all of the rest. I think from the U.S. side, the proximate issue, the thing that they want to address very, very quickly, is this whole issue of actually opening the Straits of Hormuz.
Right, Mr. Grenier, I'll come back to you with a number of other points also regarding these negotiations. Let me proceed towards Mr. Ayaz Muhammad Khan, from Ambassador. Mr. Khan, as these talks are happening, what sort of an understanding would you like to share with our viewers when it comes to Pakistan emerging as a major player when it comes to global diplomacy, hosting these talks right here in Islamabad?
Well, certainly it's a very important development from Pakistan's point of view. Pakistan was previously considered as the frontline state, as far as security and terrorism was concerned, and now we have emerged as the exporter of stability. And this in itself is a huge achievement from Pakistan, or for Pakistan's diplomacy. We have proven to the world, especially the warring parties, that we are credible, we are trustworthy, and we are neutral. And these are the three ingredients which make a mediator credible. And the very fact that the high-ranking delegations from both the countries have come to Islamabad, they decided to come to Islamabad, speaks for itself that Pakistan is now being seen as a mediator, as a peace credible exporter, peacemaker, and convener of high-ranking delegations from both the countries. I think in our view, it's a huge achievement. It speaks for itself that Pakistan.
Right, Mr. Khan, from this point onwards, what sort of a message has been delivered to the globe at large when it comes to Pakistan playing such an important and a pivotal role, bringing the two warring sides with such a speed back to the negotiating table after this particular development? to what level do you think Pakistan's standing in the community of nations is going to elevate? Message has been delivered to the global large when it comes
you
to
can see for yourself that
playing
the
such an
whole
important
world
pivotal role, bringing the two warring sides with such a speed back to the negotiating table. After this particular development, to what level do you think Pakistan's standing in the community of nations is going to elevate? Message has been delivered to the global large.
You can see for yourself that the whole world is spiral out into the warring side. It will engulf not only the whole Middle East, but also
this particular
it could happen
to what level
beyond Middle East as well. So, congratulations, and you can see for yourself that or ever since it will just not silent the whole Middle East, but also back from fight to happen. I think beyond Middle East as well. So, as important players, you can see for yourself or ever since making peace exporting the whole
Mr. Khan, there are a number of other very important points. I'll come separately on each one of them. But before heading towards them, I want your understanding regarding the kind of position Pakistan stands right now. Pakistan has also got some unresolved issues that pertain directly to Pakistan's concerns, including that long-standing dispute over Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and also impressing upon that Taliban this should be fulfilling the international obligation as per the Doha Agreement. Now, is there anything the world at large or the major powers could also understand the legitimate concerns of Pakistan, including that long-standing dispute over Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and also impressing upon that Taliban this should be
certainly up till now,
is there anything the world at large or the major powers could also understand the legitimate concerns of Pakistan, including that long-standing terrorism Pakistan was behind everything Taliban certainly up till now, is there anything the world at large or the major powers could also understand the legitimate concerns of Pakistan, minority terrorism, Pakistan was behind everything, and we have been telling them that look, solution to every outstanding problem is now, but we have to sit on the hill and out of the arrow they have some and you have been telling them look, now the only problem not only within without as well foundation was based on peace without. As regards I think it is now much time has been there incredible mantra, but the whole world knows that we cannot very fast drive out these addictions. Mr. Grania, you already referred to one of the most contentious sticking points during these negotiations would be the discussions regarding the case and the scenario of Strait of Hormuz. And now, regarding this particular narrow strait, we saw the recent interaction by President Donald Trump with media saying that we actually don't need Strait of Hormuz. It is, in fact, the other countries which basically rely on that very narrow passageway. What sort of sense do you make out of this particular statement by President Donald Trump?
Much more important for us to rather than watch it. And clear that whatever else people have said U.S. is very concerned about the U.S. very much depends on open flight. After all, that the U.S. energy independence in hydrocarbons, the U.S. is affected by the increase in global prices as much as anyone else, if not more. So this is a very, very important issue, despite what the president might say.
So, Mr. Grenier, what could be the possible ideal scenario in the future regarding the Strait of Hormuz, administering this passageway so that there wouldn't be any sort of obstruction in future regarding the oil shipments from there?
Well, obviously, the whole world would like to see
Grenier, what could be the possible ideal scenario in the future regarding the Strait of Hormuz, administering this passageway so that there wouldn't be any sort of obstruction in future regarding the oil shipments from
that can be employed by the Iranians. And so the Iranians will not give that up. Would like to see
what could be the possible ideal scenario? Right, Mr. Grenier, let me once again proceed towards Mr. Khan. That you have a number of other issues pertaining to the nuclear issue over Iran and nuclear program. Also, there are a number of others as well. Please stick around with us. And Mr. Khan, when you talk about Pakistan's bilateral relationship with the United States of America, it has in fact touched new heights, especially under President Trump's administration. How much role do you think that particular trajectory of the bilateral relationship, there are a number of the recent past had influenced Pakistan convincing or persuading the U.S. authorities to reach to a country? It has in fact touched new heights, especially under President Trump's administration.
Look, so far,
role do you think that particular trajectory of the bilateral relationship, there are a number of the recent past had influenced Pakistan convincing or persuading the U.S. authorities to reach to a country? It has in fact touched new heights, especially under President Trump's administration. So far, role do you think that particular trajectory of the bilateral relationship, there are a number of the recent past had influenced Pakistan convincing or persuading the U.S. authorities to promoting
all domains also that power is about not only but also we have that we as how can we really re-establish in our region and beyond. And I think that all domains has that Trump and Harris about not only that Pakistan can never see that but also we have
every dog got his day right. Must be walking in the moonlight. I don't walk like me, big dog, you a flake. Red braids like a pet pedigree. Ride around town, shotgun in the V. Got a fresh groom on, got blisters too big.
When it comes to Iran nuclear program, it was the U.S. under President Trump's first administration that went out of particular unilaterally. And now, these negotiations, what could be a possible middle ground that could be acceptable to both the sides, given the fact if we keep the Iranian position as to what they refer to as the right of the enrichment of uranium as per the provisions of the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. These negotiations, what could be a possible middle ground that could be acceptable to both the sides, given the fact if we keep the Iranian position as to what they refer to as the right of the enrichment of uranium
resolution of the provisions of the nuclear is going to depend on negotiations. The U.S. is claiming that either through direct military action or by forcing Iran to capitulate, it could, if you will, unilaterally deal with this issue, remove all that nuclear material from resolution, ensure that Iran can never again use centrifuges to enrich uranium. That's not going to happen. That will only happen with the agreement of the Iranians. So it's going to have to be part of the larger pact. This could, if you will, unilaterally deal with this. I think that, as you mentioned, for Iran, resolution ensure that Iran can never again use centrifuges to enrich uranium is not something that they will easily give up. Now, I think that there are ways of addressing that Iranian red line, allowing Iran, at least I think principle, as you mentioned, to exercise its right to enrich uranium, but to do so under the auspices of some sort of international consortium that will place continued enrichment under some sort of international condominium, such that Iran would not have full unilateral right of engaging in that activity. I think that do so under an agreement somewhere in the long term will have some sort of like that. Now, I think at this point, the U.S. will not be wanting to continue to make that concession, but I suspect it's something like that. Probably such that Iran can have full unilateral.
Any sort of possibility, Mr. Grania, are there any sort of scenarios where the U.S. administration would consider conceding some of Iranian rights under NPT when it comes to its nuclear program that could be acceptable for Iranians at the same time? Could there be any sort of scenario that or do we see any sort of compromise or any sort of a concession for the Trump administration as a complete non-negotiable when it comes to its nuclear program?
I think that it's quite likely that we will see which is in stages. So, for instance, here I'm relying a little bit on what we know of the negotiations that are taking place immediately before the start of the current hostilities began on the 28th of February. And, for instance, I think that discussion of a complete but temporary cessation. So, for instance, cessation of uranium enrichment on the part of the Iranians, after which they would then be able to exercise their rights. I would not be at all surprised if we saw something like that again. And that one of the real difficulties here is that there's a complete lack of trust on either side. And so I think if we were able to have a multi-stage after which they would touch that some level of trust would exercise their rights, that the Iranians had some assurances that the U.S. would not again strike at that militarily at will without more, is that there's a lack that under those circumstances at some point in the future. And so I think if we were able to get a to see some of that some level of trust would exercise
right, regarding the Iran's ballistic missile program, the U.S. has been consistently keen regarding Iranians putting some limits to the range of their ballistic missiles. Now, looking at different ranges of Iran's ballistic missile program, what we see is they don't pose an imminent threat to the United States of America. Now, what makes the U.S. administration so keen in impressing upon the Iranians of urging them to limit consistently range of their limits on the ranges of different missiles of Iran's ballistic missile program?
Well, I think that there are a number of interests that the U.S. has now. Obviously, there is their interest in somehow protecting Israel. If it were up to the U.S. to choose unilaterally, they would try to limit the reach of Iranian missiles to some distance short. I think that there are a number of Israel, and that's going to be very, very interesting for the U.S. to agree to. But there are other issues for the U.S. Obviously, the U.S. has bases somehow protecting military facilities and deployment of the U.S. military forces in the region. The U.S. want to protect the reach of Iran. The U.S. is under some pressure on some part short allies to try to protect them, and so that's going to be very, very interesting for the U.S. to agree to. But there are other issues going to be very difficult in any sort of bases on the Iranian missiles that will protect the Arab ally and deployment. So again, that defense, of course, military forces in the region. I think it was the clear position of the U.S. going into the current hostilities that, in effect, given the demands of the Iranians at the time, they wanted the Iranians to unilaterally disarm. And that, I think, is clearly something that the Iranians are not going to accept. I think the
about that very concern by the United States administration regarding the freedom of navigation through Strait of Hormuz. Is there some sort of concession the U.S. initially would be able to do? For example, it could be on the front when it comes to Iranian demand of unblocking or unfreezing their assets. About that very concern by the United States.
I think already a major development has been navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. For the first time,
some sort of concession the U.S. initially would be able to do? For example, it could be on the front when it comes to Iranian
there was one news suggesting that the Iranians tried to fire at them, but I think already a major development in Iranian media selectively, like reporting this event. I think this is a very major development, and the other thing I think we need to understand that these both sides, I think, thanks to Pakistani facilitation of not only the run-up to the ceasefire and preserving it afterwards, given the Lebanese situation, in my opinion, the two sides have really come well prepared for the negotiation. And I think a lot of work has been done behind the scenes to badge and both sides, I think, Pakistan leading the process along with its core allies, China, Heyeti, and others. And a lot of preparation has been done, which is why what we have seen is that not only these are direct, I think a lot of work has been done with the field marshal and perhaps Pakistan present in the main, like its role, where the three delegates led by and a lot of preparation and the Iranian speaker of the parliament meeting at the political level. Technical groups have been created, namely, Pakistan present in the main for legal issues, for security/military issues, and nuclear issues. These technical groups are only formed with prior preparations, well in advance. So therefore, the technical experts have accompanied the American delegation for legal issues, further assisting them from Washington DC. And likewise, the Iranian technical groups are only formed. For example, the head of the Iranian central bank, so therefore the diplomatic and political security delegates. So I think even the fact that they talks today from generics to specific, with the creation of only more, for example, we can be hopeful that contesting issues such as over nuclear. So I think even the fire prevention of war today as the Iranian demand state of war specific, the Americans primary expectations that these talks will lead to reopening of the state. I think all of these tricky subjects are on the table, and the discussions now, in my opinion, and the second round is continuing right now. I think as well into the night, and perhaps another session will take place. Expectations tomorrow. I think it indicates that now the discussions have, I think, from general issues to the specific domains. And once these groups, finish discussing the technical details, then each expert tonight, then another comes back to the political level, and then tomorrow discussions take place. At the same time, I would also like to say that I think ultimately it is only those and one directly negotiating or those who are facilitating very limited number of leaders who know the details. And the only thing we can rely upon, for example, at the same time, I would also like to say the Iranian speakers exposed, I think, more than half an hour ago, and he said that the negotiators right now are basically discussing the specific issues, and they are exchanging documents, and these documents, and then they are come to the political level, and they are debated. I think that is the most authentic piece of information about that today's talks that has come to light.
This is quite an information, Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed, a foreign affairs expert. This is quite an information, and we will delve deeper with these different dimensions that you've already mentioned and have alluded to, of course. But it's the time for a quick, short break. Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed, please stay with us, and this particular transmission is continue for the rest of the hour. But after this particular news break, my fellow anchors are going to take it from here onwards. Delve deeper with these different dimensions that you've already mentioned and have alluded to, of course. But it's the time for a quick short break.
On the Pakistan and Islamabad peace talks regarding Iran and US negotiations, and we see that the conclusion of these talks are awaiting positive and hopeful conclusions are expected, and the talks are underway in Islamabad as Pakistan takes a center stage in a crucial diplomatic push to restore peace in the Middle East. Islamabad peace talks regarding Iran and US negotiations, and we see that the conclusion of these talks are awaiting positive and hopeful conclusions are expected. The delegations, the US Vice President J.D. Vance leads a high-level US delegation for these historic peace talks with Iran, joined by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, while on the Iranian side, leaders like Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf and Abbas Araghchi participate in pivotal diplomatic engagement. The delegations, the US Vice President J.D. Vance leads a high-level US delegation for these historic peace talks with Iran, joined by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, while on the Iranian side, leaders like Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf and Abbas Araghchi participate in pivotal US-Iran talks underway in Islamabad as Pakistan takes center stage in crucial diplomatic push to restore peace in the Middle East. US Vice President J.D. Vance leads high-level US delegation for historic peace talks with Iran, joined by Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, while Iranian leaders Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf and Abbas Araghchi participate in pivotal diplomatic engagement underway in Islamabad as Pakistan takes center stage in crucial diplomatic push to restore peace. Islamabad is at the center of global diplomacy as high-stakes talks between the United States and Iran get underway in the federal capital from Washington to Tehran. All eyes are fixed on Pakistan. Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf and Abbas Araghchi participate in pivotal diplomatic engagement underway in Islamabad as Pakistan takes center stage in crucial diplomatic push to restore peace. Islamabad is at the center of global diplomacy as high-stakes talks between the United States and Iran get underway in the federal capital from Washington to Tehran. All Prime Minister Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif holds a meeting with US Vice President J.D. Vance in Islamabad. High-level talks focus on regional peace as Pakistan reaffirms role in facilitating sustainable Islamabad is at the center of global diplomacy as high-stakes talks between the United States. Prime Minister Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif appreciates Iran's engagement in Islamabad talks. Prime Minister Mohammad Shehbaz Sharif resolved to continue playing its role as a mediator. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif holds a meeting with the Iranian delegation at the Islamabad talks. Facilitating sustainable Islamabad is at the center of global diplomacy as high-stakes. A high-level Iranian delegation is present in Islamabad for crucial peace talks as Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian on X underscores Tehran's firm resolve to defend its national interests while engaging in dialogue with confidence and purpose. As peace talks, a high-level Islamabad, French President Emmanuel Macron has held discussions with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan reached resort yesterday in its national interests while engaging in dialogue with confidence and purpose. As peace talks, a high-level Islamabad, French President Emmanuel Macron has held discussions with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan reached resort yesterday in its national interests while engaging in dialogue with confidence and purpose. As peace talks, high-level Islamabad, French President Emmanuel Macron has held discussions with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Yes, those are the headlines you have just viewed, and now we are taking you back to Mr. Jalal Jahan, who is conducting a special transmission on Islamabad peace talks. As peace talks, high-level
This is the live transmission on Pakistan TV regarding the Islamabad talks as they are underway between the high-ranking delegations by the US side and Iranian side. Of course, the US side is led by Vice President Mr. J.D. Vance, and also Iranian side, the Assembly Speaker of Iran, Mr. Mohammad Baghir Ghalibaf, is leading Iranian side. And just a short while ago, you were listening to our esteemed panelist, Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed, who is a foreign affairs expert, talking about as to what has been discussed so far. He has given us quite an information. Let's once again proceed towards Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed. Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed, you already referred to They are technical groups that are just formed, and also that the documents are being exchanged, and that would reach to a political level, and then there would be debate regarding all the important issues these documents contain. Could you go ahead with a little bit of more detail as to what could these documents possibly be containing? The documents are being exchanged, and that would reach to a political level, and then there would be debate regarding all the important issues these delegations contain. Could you go ahead with a little bit of more detail as to what could these documents possibly be containing? The documents are being exchanged,
remains, preserved by actually Pakistan administration. Then comes these two delegations convincing Israel where the temperature, in its attack, which Lebanon is very relative. He's in the situation over here, so we preserve the ceasefire. But I think what is most important is regarding the talks to Pakistan. I think much of it is already sorted out. Through Pakistan-led in its back-channel diplomacy, obviously in collaboration, he's in the situation of core allies, namely Arabia, China, and Turkey and Egypt in this specific diplomatic already. I think lots of things were sorted out, and both sides have come with a problem-solving mode rather than just core allies, different already 15 points from the American side, 10 points from the Iranian side. I think on major issues, generally lots of things been sorted out, and that is why both sides have more technical groups. They have gone into the solving mode within the first day itself.
Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed, I get your point. I'll come back to you to talk about the possibility of all particular differences or the thing that you're referring to right now, that much has already been sorted out. Both the delegations are here with that frame of mind for the problem resolution, solving the problem. Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed, I get your point. I'll come back to you, Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed. Please stay with us. We are now honored to be joined by Mr. Enar Tenjin. He's a senior fellow, Center for International Governance Innovation. He's the chairman, Asia Narratives, joining us from China. Mr. Enar Tenjin, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on this special live transmission at Pakistan TV. Really appreciate that. Mr. Tenjin, right away, I want your understanding how China is looking as the things are developing, the high-stakes negotiations that are happening here in Islamabad with high-ranking delegations from the US and Iran side having negotiations as we speak.
Well, from China's perspective, they're not trying to do what the United States would do in this case, which is come in with a bunch of directives or say, what the peace plan should be. The issue here, of course, is trust. The Iranians do not trust the U.S. because the two previous peace negotiations resulted in attacks even before the peace negotiations had finished. So the question is, how do you get people to the table who don't trust each other? And Pakistan provided that in coordination with Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and other countries. And this is really the most important point. Going forward in a multipolar world, you have to have some sort of way of creating consensus, cooperation. And a lot of that is going to depend on middle powers who are trusted by all sides, coming together and saying, look, we'll be a guarantor, but they also have to take in the end, they're going to probably have to take a more assertive approach. Not present at these peace negotiations with Israel. They are continuing to attack Lebanon. That continues to be an impediment to a full realization of the ceasefire. Minesweepers going through and mines, but there has been some breakthroughs. It was not anticipated that there would be face-to-face meetings with Vice President Vance and the Iranian side directly. That's very, very positive. But in the end, you had an unprovoked attack by the U.S. on Iran. Iran responded asymmetrically. They could not do it militarily, so they have done it in terms of economically. Unfortunately, their means and methods is hurting the entire world in terms of energy and also a coming food shock. When you do not have the fertilizers or the fuel to run the tractors, the diesel, you can miss planting season and you can reduce the crop yields by anywhere between 50 and 25%. So this is very, very serious. The whole world is involved. The question is, you have to build a table, you have to build that trust. And this is exactly how China sees this. This is not something new. They have been saying the same things for many years. And more importantly, they have been implementing it. When you start looking at the Belt and Road Initiative, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the numerous regional treaties and trade treaties with ASEAN, with RCEP. These are all indications of how China views a new world where it's about cooperation, not about imposing ideology. So hopefully this is the start of a process that can go somewhere, but it's going to take some significant pullback from each side. The difficulties here, of course, the possession of nuclear missiles and weapons by Israel. I doubt that Iran would give up the future of their ability to enrich given the unprovoked attack unless they can be assured that no nuclear weapons are going to be in the Middle East. So this is a long road. There has to be reparations by the U.S. side. I think that's from the Iranian point of view, and from the U.S. point of view, I guess it's all about this nuclear issue. So long road ahead of us, but a good start.
Right, Mr. Tandon, when we specifically talk about Iran's nuclear program, there was JCPOA P5+1. Now, in regard to that, of course, that was unilaterally pulled out by the United States back in 2018 under President Trump's first administration. Looking at P5 now, if there happens to be some sort of a middle ground or a possible future scenario when it comes to the resolution of that particular situation regarding Iran's nuclear program, what sort of a future possible scenario that could be? Do we have an understanding that it would be an understanding if it happens just between the US and Iran directly, or are there going to be other parties to that agreement also, for instance, as it was in the case of JCPOA?
The JCPOA disintegrated, and that was mostly with European powers who were not happy about the fact that the U.S. unilaterally withdrew under Trump's first administration. This was what started it off. Now, the irony being that today Trump would be happy if they could go back to the JCPOA, but that's not possible. You can never swim in the same river twice. And in this particular case, because of the unprovoked attack, Iran is not going to give up their nuclear ambitions, even if they say they would, because it wouldn't make sense. It's the only way they can guarantee that there is not another attack such as happened with the U.S. And as I said, the thing that no one is talking about is the fact that Israel has between 118 and 120 nuclear weapons. And they've made it clear that they're going to use them. No one, for some reason, wants to talk about the fact that they are a de facto nuclear power. How can Iran, say, well, we won't develop nukes when they are, in fact, being threatened by a nuclear power in the form of Israel? So I do think, as I said before, that if there's going to be a lasting peace, one that can be built in consensus, Israel has to give up its nuclear weapons. Iran has to give up its nuclear ambitions, and it has to be made clear that Israel has a right to exist in some sort of two-state solution that observes the rights of the Palestinians, and that Iran will have to give up any idea that it's going to somehow wipe out Israel in whatever form it takes. But this is going to take a long period of time. And remember, blood has been spilled. In the Middle East, as I was talking to many people, diplomats from that area, they don't forget these things. These are things that are passed down generationally. So until there is blood money paid, until all sides have been satisfied, you risk having a peace that is fragile and easily broken by either extremists doing false flag operations or by a desire for revenge. So, as I said, this is the start of a long road. Hopefully it will lead to peace. I have my doubts at this point, but anything that stops the killing, even for a little while, is on the positive side.
Mr. Tenjin, please stay with us. Let me once again proceed towards Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed. Dr. Ahmed, what's the way forward when it comes to Iran's nuclear program?
Well, I would a little bit, beg to differ with our, the other speaker, Mr. Tenjin, in a sense that, Iran, with the Ayatollah's proclamation, never stated that it wants to be a nuclear weapon power, first of all. Number two, a major constraint on Iran, unlike Israel, Pakistan, or India, three countries which have never signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, Iran is a NPT signatory. So therefore, IAEA inspectors were always trying to monitor and, oversee Iran's nuclear activities. I disagree with him that under the current constraints, where 6 weeks of aggression by US and Israel and then absolute decimation of Iran's military capability, at least, the naval and air capability, we can say. And then obviously it has lost the leverage in the Gulf because whatever little, goodwill it had developed through firing missiles at non-US related facilities, public facilities, energy targets, it has lost. So it is Iran which is actually at a weaker point. And, let me complement this argument because of course, our focus is on the talks today, how they are proceeding and what to expect next. I think on the sides, apart from the US warships, traveling across the Strait of Hormuz today, whether to clear the mines or showing, the resumed military, activity over there. Another major development has taken place, and I think we need to duly focus upon that. And that perhaps is also related not necessarily to the diplomatic part of today's talks, but the deterrence part of today's talks. I think Pakistan has, played a trump card or a masterstroke today, building upon the statement that the Corps commanders had issued on Tuesday, hours before the expiry of the deadline, and I think which played a very important role in bringing Iranian hardliners to the negotiating table ultimately, which was that condemning Iranian attack on eastern province of Saudi Arabia energy facilities, which destroyed, made a major destruction, and expressing Pakistan's complete solidarity with the kingdom and its people. What has happened today is that the Saudi Defense Ministry announced around afternoon when the two sides were just going into the direct talks in Islamabad. They announced that the Pakistan Air Force, along with the support staff and equipment, has arrived at the King Abdulaziz Air Base in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia, which is where the Saudi energy, installations are located, which means actually that the veiled message that Pakistan passed on last Tuesday to the Iranian hardliners, and which eventually compels the team to land in Islamabad and negotiate directly through Pakistani auspices in Islamabad. Today, I think Pakistan has now made it operational, meaning that the Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement that we concluded with Saudi Arabia in September 2025 has been invoked especially. Now, what is the larger message from our side now, especially to Iran? That look, if talks fail, then obviously the escalation begins with US and Israel attacking Iran in a manner not seen before. Now, obviously, the sequence could be that Iran then retaliates against the US and Israel, but in a very limited, because it doesn't have the reach. But it has been retaliating against the Gulf, neighbors, including Saudi Arabia, until the last moment before the ceasefire went into effect. So the issue now is what Pakistanis are suggesting to the Iranians, that look, this is a rare opportunity that we have brought for you. In case you do not agree to compromise with your American counterparts, even making a little bit more concessions than the Americans would make, then obviously count this factor that Pakistani Air Force is present in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. It will defend Saudi Arabia.
Right, Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed, quite information. I get your point. It was pleasure having you during the course of this special live transmission at Pakistan TV. Really appreciate that. Dr. Ishtiaq Ahmed, foreign affairs expert. Mr. Tenjan, coming back to you, when we talk about that particular aggression right after the announcement of the temporary ceasefire by Israel on Lebanon front, is there anything substantial that we could actually look forward to, the entire world could actually look forward to, the US administration as these negotiations happen, to impress upon the Israeli authorities not to go ahead or expand that particular front?
No, unfortunately, if you start looking at the history of this, and I mean the history, you can go back 30 years to a white paper that was put together by Richard Pearl. It was called Operation Clean Break. And what it said is that Israel should not bother to negotiate peace with its neighbors, that it should seek to undermine and dominate the entire region in order to keep itself safe. And that has been happening. The last part of this, if you read that paper, was Iran. Obviously, 7.5 million Jews cannot take on 92 million Iranians, especially when they're 1,000 kilometers away, and there are tremendous natural geographic issues, 3 mountain ranges, etc. You got to remember that Iran is 4 times the size of Iraq. It has 3.5 times more people, and it took 1 million troops the first time that the U.S. and coalition forces went into Iraq. You can only imagine how much more would be needed in natural geographic issues to complete invasion. In terms of my colleagues' comments, 4 times the size, the fact is that it has 3.5 peace negotiations have been going in favor of Iran. They have been the ones who are insisting on the terms. You can only imagine how much more this idea that somehow they have been diminished. Yes, they have, but they still invasion control the Straits. In terms of my colleagues' comments, they choose the missile destroyers 3.5 peace negotiations have to do something that they approve of. Or they see this as a breaking of the ones who fired. They have shown that they do have weapons. This idea that somehow don't seem to understand exactly what they still did. They fired all those missiles. They choose basically soaking up all of the continue to do as they could. Offensive missiles. They see that cost them literally tens of 20 times more than they do have weapons. This idea that they were using to understand this emboldened what they still did. A lot of fire countries to think that, those missiles first, but subsequently they started using more sophisticated missiles they could break through offensive missiles. They see that cost them literally tens of 20 times more than they do have weapons. This idea is quite clear that they seem to understand this emboldened what they still did. A lot of fire countries to think that, those missiles first, but subsequently they started using more sophisticated to protect themselves, break through offensive continues, and they are able to control the Straits of Hormuz. They have the United States over a barrel. The United States is not simple enough to control the Straits of Hormuz to be epic. But subsequently, they start using how long to protect themselves. Definitely have to be in our continuous and they are able to control the Straits of Hormuz. They have the United States over a barrel. So, as I said, this is a long process that has just begun. A lot of moving parts. make sense to me. I wish they would, but wishes do not make things to be true. And in fact, we should have a nuclear armed Israel right there because it makes it clear that it should take their direction. I don't see any other alternative for them given the circumstances.
Right, Mr. Tendon, please stay with us. I'll come back to you. We are honored to be joined by another participant. Mr. Munir Akram is the former permanent representative for Pakistan at the United Nations. Mr. Munir Akram, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on this special live transmission at Pakistan TV. Mr. Akram, a lot has already been discussed when it comes to Iran's position now. Iran has also talked of the unblocking or unfreezing of the assets. Now, do you think that is something doable that the U.S. authorities would consider and do on a serious note?
Yes, I think the U.S. would be ready to consider sanctions relief, but it would probably be in exchange for Iranian commitment on the nuclear issue. And the U.S. effort, I think, would be
this has been the longest
to bring the Iranians back to where they were in the Oman negotiations, where they agreed no nuclear weapons. The issue was nuclear enrichment, what level of enrichment they would be entitled to. I think the U.S. effort will be to bring them back to that situation. And if Iran is prepared to give some commitments on the nuclear issue, no acquisition of weapons, then I think the U.S. would be ready to consider sanctions relief. That's always been the equation between sanctions relief and the nuclear issue, and I don't think the U.S. Position has changed on that, even though the motivation for the Iranians now to get a nuclear weapon is probably